Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bandit Network TV2 on Rumble. I just want to get on here and record this quick podcast because I actually have to get things going today. It's very busy and it's my birthday, so I want to make this podcast real short. But as the name of this podcast states, this is another continuation in the Delphi double murder case, the case of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, who lost their lives on or about February 14th, 2017. Now, I'm always trying to keep up to date with what is happening within this case because me and along with a lot of other people believe that this case is far from over. It's far from over. Just because Richard Allen was arrested, charged, and convicted of the murders does not mean that this case is done. There's a lot of people out there that believe that Richard Allen is innocent, myself included. I don't think that Richard Allen did this. There's not enough evidence that convinced me, coming from the state of Indiana, that convinced me that he was the one that killed these two teenagers. Now, with that being said, there's new details that are coming out day by day after his conviction. He has been sentenced to 130 years in prison. He has also been transferred out of state to an Oklahoma prison, and that happened about a month ago. I told you about that. Now, within this podcast, I do want to share with you this piece of information that came out about 3 days ago, and I don't think enough people are talking about this. It may not be hitting the YouTube airwaves just as of yet, but I did come across this article that I do want to share with you. So this information is coming from the dailymail.com. This is coming from the authors of the Murder Sheath podcast. Their findings from talking with Delphi police. Okay. Now, I'm mentioning that, and I want to put an emphasis on this because to me, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. This is nothing but hearsay. I'm very hesitant and very questionable whenever authors come out with information. Kind of like within the Idaho 4 case with Howard Bloom, the author that wanted to write the book about Brian Koberger and how he was close to investigators. So please bear this in mind. I do know that, they're a very well-known podcast. They're also authors of this new book that they're releasing, or that has been released. But that being said, that does not mean that they're necessarily, the information that you're hearing is necessarily the truth. Okay? I am hesitant and I'm questionable about anything, especially when it comes to this case. Anything that I hear coming from Delphi police, whether it's coming directly from Delphi police, Carroll County Sheriff, really the entire state of Indiana pertaining to Richard Allen's case, okay, I just question every single thing. Now, with that being said, here's an article that I came across on the dailymail.com. This is coming from the two authors from the Murder Sheath podcast. They said that there were strange moments and conversations that Richard Allen's mom and wife brushed off at the time. Now, this is, whenever they say time, they're referring to, I guess, after the murders happened back in February of 2017. They're referring to the murders right after they happened. These conversations allegedly took place between Richard Allen and his wife and his mother. So they go on to say, but which came flooding back to them 5 years when he was finally unmasked as the girl's killer. Okay? Now, Alan's disturbing interactions with the women in his life and the immediate aftermath of the murders are revealed for the first time in the new book, Shadow of the Bridge, the Delphi Murder and Dark Side of the American Heartland. And this is coming from the same podcasters from the Murder Sheath podcast. Again, the book from journalists Ann Clan and attorney Kevin Greeley, the husband and wife team behind the Murder Sheath podcast, delves into the murders, the investigation, and Alan's trial, following the hundreds of interviews with investigators, the victims' families, and others close to the case. In this exclusive interview ahead of its release, Kane and Greeley told the Daily Mail about damning conversations between Alan and his mom, Janice Allen. Now, again, this is new information to me. I've never heard anything about a cigarette butt that's been left at the crime scene. Maybe there were mentions of that. I do remember that there were kind of mentions of it. Some people's brought it up, but this is my first time hearing about details. Okay. They go on to say that in exclusive interviews ahead of its release, Kane and Greeley told the Daily Mail about damning conversations between Alan and his mom, Janice Allen. I've already read that. I'm sorry. I just repeated that line. The authors learned from investigators that a few days after 14-year-old Libby and 13-year-old Abby were killed, Janice had received strange phone calls from her son. Now let's see if I can pull this up. So, according to what they're saying right here, and I took screenshots again because my other phone is dead, so it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to read it out loud. They claim that he claimed, referring to Richard Allen, that they might find a cigarette butt. Okay? Collect his DNA from it and use it to tie him to the crime scene, Janice told police. Now, this is what allegedly Richard Allen, according to the investigators, Delphi police, Carroll County police, they told the Murder Sheath podcasters, apparently within this new book that's about to be released, that Richard Allen allegedly called his mother Janice and said that he was worried they would tie him back to the crime scene because of DNA that was found on a cigarette butt that he threw out while he was on the trails that day. This is what this is saying. Alan's mom found the conversation odd, the authors revealed, but she kept it to herself for years. When her son was arrested in October 2022, Janice recalled the strange conversation and told police. They go on to say that we learned about the investigators that the conversation definitely stuck in her head to the point where she felt like she should tell investigators. Kane said, it's not something where she thought, oh, that's just Richard being Richard, and then forgot about it. I think it's significant. Again, this is like, third-party information. This is the problem that I have with this. Let's carry on. He was not taking responsibility. He was almost bracing them for his arrest, claiming that he would have become a helpless victim of fate, she said. This wasn't the only clue that Allen was the child killer hiding in plain sight to the close-knit town of 3,000 residents. During the roughly 24-hour period when the girls were missing, Kathy Allen, Allen's wife of 34 years, and the mother of his adult daughter, Brittany, was also among those wanting to help bring the girls home. When these girls were missing, Delphi went into override. Employers were given their employees a day off to search. People were gathering together and volunteering. That's exactly what the character of Delphi is like. If your neighbor is in trouble, you're going to help them no matter what, Kane said. Kathy was very much in the spirit of that. She wanted to go to the trails and help the search. However, Allen persuaded his wife not to get involved. Kane said Kane and Greeley revealed. It is not clear exactly what he said, but it was enough to stop Kathy from joining the search. Now, again, they're getting this information from Delphi Police and Carroll County Sheriff. Kathy also had to convince her husband to contact the police to tell them that he was on the bridge that day. The book reveals. He had been so reluctant to call in the tip. Well, you see what happened. He just said that he was on the bridge that day, and he was initially cleared early on in the investigation. He was already interviewed, but then somehow, some way, someone came across a dusty old paper in the bottom of a drawer and was like, this guy's not been looked at a second time. Let's go ahead and, after 5 years, let's go ahead and take a second look at him. Let's go ahead and take a second look at this guy that's already been cleared, that was honest and transparent. See, in my opinion, Richard Allen was just doing what a decent human being would do. Some people's going to say, well, you're naive and you're stupid for thinking that. Okay, but this is exactly why people don't want to come forth with information pertaining to a crime, because they're afraid if you live in Delphi, Carroll County, you may just end up arrested. You may just end up the scapegoat. So, here's something else. He sounded nervous when he told her this. This is what they're claiming he said to his mother and to his wife. He sounded nervous when he told her, referring to Richard Allen's mother, Janice, they're going to pin this on me. Allen told his mom he had been on the trails the day the girls were murdered, and he had been smoking a cigarette. He claimed that investigators might find the cigarette butt, collect the DNA from it, and use it to tie him to the crime scene. I've already showed you this, but let's go back to this, okay? Let's just say that this information is true. Let's just say that, yeah, he was smoking a cigarette that day on the trail, and so what? I think that any normal human being, this could be the reason why he was reluctant to call in information. Honestly, I would be too. And that's a good reason. That's a damn good reason. If this is true, if he was actually on the trails smoking a cigarette that day, and then lo and behold, he probably didn't realize that two murders of teenagers were about to happen. Whatever happened that day after he left, and then whenever shit hit the fan, he's like, wow, wait, hold up a second. I was on the trail that day, and I was smoking a cigarette, and I actually, threw it out without thinking about it. they're probably going to find that cigarette and tie it back to me. I think that's a normal thought process. Because even if you didn't do it, that would be linking your DNA at the crime scene. Now let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. I want you to think back about when the searches, the alleged searches of the girls, because I question everything when it comes to this case. After they supposedly disappeared the afternoon of February 13th, 2017, and search crews and everybody in the community of Delphi was out there searching for these two teenage girls that would later be found the following morning. People were out there into the early morning hours. Can you imagine how many other people's DNA would be found in that field? At the crime scene is what people want to say, the crime scene, even though I don't think that's the crime scene. I don't think that's where Abby and Libby met their final resting place, if you know what I mean. I don't think that's where they met their final resting place. I believe that they were taken somewhere else. They were killed and they were brought back there. I digress. There were so many other people's DNA out there at the crime scene. That crime scene was contaminated. Jerry Holman even said that people were pissing, spitting, throwing cigarette butts out. There's so many other DNA that was found at that crime scene, but they were not able to link Richard Allen's DNA at the crime scene. This is the first time that I've heard this information about the cigarette butt. Police never did mention that. There were no mentions of a cigarette butt. We haven't heard anything about this. That's why I'm questioning this information. This is why I'm hesitant to believe this. Is this true? Or is this just a game of telephone? Or is this just something that, they want to throw into the book because, it sounds, this sounds pretty spicy. Oh, this sounds good. Let's say that Richard Allen confessed to his wife and his mother that he left his cigarette butt at the crime scene, that he was smoking that day, and that he's afraid they're going to tie him back to it because they may get his DNA. Why have we not heard anything about this before? And if that was the case, even if it was true, why didn't they test all of the DNA, all of the cigarette butts? Because I highly doubt that Richard Allen was the only one smoking on the trail that day. I'm sure that there were other smokers out there. So if they're able to pin the bullet, which the magic bullet, which was half-ass tested, fired, matched a very common gun that a lot of people own, okay? Mind you, the actual bullet was unspent, the bullet that they allegedly found at the crime scene. The magic bullet. They want to compare that to a fired bullet. You're comparing apples with oranges, as what the experts said. I digress. If they found DNA which linked Allen to the crime scene, don't you think that prosecutors in the state would have that within their evidence? Or maybe they don't. It wouldn't be surprising if they didn't. I digress. I keep on saying I digress because who's to say this information is true? This is not coming directly from the state of Indiana. This is not coming directly from Carroll County Sheriff. This is not coming directly from Delphi Police. And even if it was, I would be questionable about it. Look at how much they have lied, and they have half-assed this investigation. Completely half-assed. Reckless, careless. Okay? Even if that information is true, what they're telling the Murder Chief podcast, they should be questionable. They should have discernment when putting this in their book that they're about to promote and sell. Yes, I'm calling them out. Because this book, the one right here on the screen, that is, ahead of its release, apparently, or apparently it's going to be released, or it just was released. I don't know, but this sounds like a promo. Okay? This sounds like a promo, something that you want to throw in there just to sound juicy. Because who's to say there's no way for the public to verify it? Whether this information is true or not, they probably know that. And to get down to the truth, you probably can't. Because Indiana has made it damn near impossible to get anything, documents, the factual secrets of this case, FOIA. Yeah, you can try, but that don't mean that you're going to get them. If they don't want to hand over what they have, they don't have to. Period. And that's just how the crossroads of America goes. It says that when her son was arrested in October 2022, Janice, his mother, recalled the strange conversation and told police. They said that we learned from investigators that the conversation definitely stuck in her mind to the point where she felt like she should bring it up to investigators, Clan said. It is not something where she thought that, oh, that's just Richard being Richard, and forgot about it. That's just, I think it's significant. Now, this is coming from the authors. Richard Allen's wife, who he's been with for 35 years, proclaims her husband's innocence. This information would, I would say that I could believe and give some credit to this information that they're putting out if it was not for all of the rest of the stuff which has been released all the way back from January after Richard Allen's trial. I'm talking about the informant that was in jail, that was trying to multiple different times trying to tell prosecutors that, listen, there's a guy in here that knows details that only the killer would know. And we're not just talking about mundane details, like basic details. We're talking about specific things that the killers, plural, would only know. Would only know. You have someone that is behind bars, this informant that doesn't want nothing out of this case, not looking for anything, not looking to get anything out of it, just revealing the information that he knows. Because he probably sees that there's an injustice and there's an innocent man that this crime is being pinned on. This right here, all of this, what I'm showing you, the Daily Mail, this book that the Murder Chief podcast is revealing, all of this stuff that they're getting allegedly from investigators, this just goes into the narrative of painting Richard Allen as a murderer. Okay? This is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, please do. I'm not trying to be stubborn. Please correct me. Is this information true? Have you heard about a cigarette butt before that Richard Allen was smoking at the crime scene? And even if he was smoking it at the crime scene, did he actually tell his wife this information? He may have been smoking it. He may have been smoking on the bridge that day. I'm not saying that he wasn't. The guy could have smoked. He could have been a smoker. What my question is, did these conversations actually take place, or is it just a game of telephone? Is this something that the murder sheath is just pulling out of their ass and throwing up in there, just pulling things out of the sky, whatever sounds good, putting it in the book, or are they just listening blindly to investigators? Are they listening blindly to investigators? Or is this just something that they're pulling out of the sky just because it sounds juicy and it will help their sales? So you let me know about what you think. I'm probably going to be talking about this more because this podcast was rushed and I have to get ready. Again, today is my birthday, so I'm doing things. Thank you everybody that has came over from YouTube, that has subscribed to Bandit Network TV2 on Rumble. Continue to do that. Like the video, share your thoughts on what you think about this information, and I will talk to you sooner than later. You have been listening to Bandit Network TV2 on Rumble.